Okay, gonna get started. I don't have any notes or anything, just a blank pad of paper to take notes. All right, hello.
Hey,
It's good to see you again.
it's great to see you again.
The last time we met, we did your height and weight and all of your measurements on the scale, if you remember.
Yes.
And we also did your nutrition physical exam, in which we examined you from head to toe, and I was looking for nutritional deficiencies, and we kind of talked about how that is a bigger part of your whole health picture.
Yep.
So, since we met last, I've gone ahead and formulated a plan for you that kind of takes into consideration the goals that you put in your intake forms, the diet history you gave me, and the information gained from that exam we did of your physical body. And I put together some recommendations for you that will take into consideration all of that stuff so that we can move you closer to those goals.
Great.
And so, just to give you a little bit about what we're doing here and my credentials and whatnot, so I'm going to be a clinical nutrition specialist. So that is why I am putting together a personalized, tailored nutrition plan for you. That's my main role. But you should also know that unlike a traditional provider, my approach is really gradual and over time.
Okay.
So you told me that you have done more intensive approaches in the past, like you've done the 75 hard before.
Yes.
I know that you like to count calories and you
I
like
do.
to, and you like to go kind of like spurts of really intense energy. And it seems like that's what you get motivation from.
Yes.
And so I don't want to take away from those tools because those short-term motivational tools can really get us a spurt of energy in the right direction when we're feeling we're falling off the path. But for you, when you said your goals are to optimize your health, like we're expecting a baby, so I imagine that you want to incorporate longevity, like you've mentioned that you just want to have a long, healthy life.
Yeah.
So when we're looking at goals like that, we're talking about the long game and optimizing your health over the next, hopefully, 7 decades.
Hopefully, yes.
So that's kind of my approach is we're looking at this like a marathon, and there's really not one specific end goal that you're going to meet at the end of our several months working together, but it's more so how can we improve your health habits so that you live more healthfully in a way that feels authentic and smooth and can help you just live longer as well. And that's a goal that never really ends. It evolves as you grow and learn more.
Yeah, that sounds great.
Perfect. So I obviously read your intake and we've talked a bunch, but can you give me in your own words, now that we're sitting here, your main health issues at this time and your chief complaints?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if I have any issues per se, but I think my complaints would be I just feel a little bit, like I think kind of what you probably got from my intake forms, where I think I could use losing like 5 to 10 pounds. And some of my habits aren't the best, whereas I snack sometimes here and there, or, I eat out, just as everyone does. But I think, sometimes it happens a little bit more often than not. And, some of that is because my work pays for my lunch every day, so
Right.
I'm eating out there. And I think it's just more so just trying to find a place where I can really get into a disciplined mode of eating, where it's gonna really enhance my health, because I do feel healthy on the day to day. I feel great in my body right now. But I think, I can make some changes. So,
Yeah. Well, that all makes a lot of sense based on what you've told me and kind of what you wrote in your intake. And what I'm kind of hearing from you is that you feel like you already have that prioritization of health in your day-to-day life. Like knowing you're very health minded. You're making conscious, healthy choices every day.
Yes.
It sounds like what you're looking for support with is a couple of small habits that need refining that will hopefully help you lose those 5 to 10 pounds.
Yeah.
Does that sound accurate?
Yeah, definitely.
because it's all connected, right? So
Yes.
you doing the snacking and maybe having a little more takeout than usual can certainly be contributing to those stubborn, like few extra pounds that feel important to you
Yeah.
to lose.
Yep.
So, can you tell me a little bit about why losing that 5 to 10 pounds, like what makes that so important for you and what will motivate you to keep working towards that?
Yeah, I think I've struggled with health, like I shouldn't say health, but weight my whole life.
Mm-hmm.
I was a football player and I was always a bigger guy. And, I think that I at one point lost 40 pounds. So just my body's kind of been an image thing for me. So
Mm-hmm.
I think that kind of plays into it. But also, when you eat bad food, you don't feel great. And I know what
Mm-hmm.
it feels like to feel good when you're in an avenue of eating well and everything
Mm-hmm.
like that. So I think that's kind of where I'm at right now. And I don't want to fall back into that path of not eating well. So, yeah.
So there's kind of two sides to your motivation. There's the aesthetic part, which everyone is affected by that. We want to look strong and we want to look healthy. And then the other bucket of what you're saying is you just want to feel good in your day-to-day life because you know how it feels to feel good and you know how it feels to feel bad. And so
Yes.
if you can choose between the two, you would like to continue feeling good.
Totally. Yeah.
All right. So I have some ideas for how we can push you in that direction. I would like, before I share those, I would like to hear from you. What do you think is one thing that could move you in that direction? If you could wave a magic wand and change maybe one or two of your habits over the next week, what would that look like for you?
Yeah. So I think work paying for my lunch is a blessing and also a curse.
Mm-hmm.
I think that the places you eat out at, they're all cooking with like seed oils and things like that, which are just inherently inflammatory for your body.
That's right.
Learned that from you. But I think just eating out in general is not great. And I think I'd like to find some way to not do that anymore, but also just curb my snack habit. Is
Mm-hmm.
is I think something that I'd really I think would reap benefits for me.
Mm-hmm.
But I feel like it's really those two things. So maybe
Mm-hmm.
if I could just try to find a way affordably to make lunch for myself every single day and not snack.
Mm-hmm.
I really do with my habits, workout habits. I think that would really be big for me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because you have those workout habits down pat. You work out very consistently with weightlifting 3, 4 times a week.
Yeah.
And that's something that you feel good about. Yeah, so in terms of diet, so what you're saying makes a whole lot of sense because those two things that you would work on if you could wave a magic wand and work on two things this week, eating out less at lunchtime and snacking less,
Yeah.
those are actually two manifestations of kind of the same root cause. So if we can address that root cause, then we can hopefully improve both of those habits at the same time instead of looking at them as two separate habits.
Okay.
So when I talk about the root cause of that, based on my analysis of everything you've told me, it seems like you're not having enough dietary protein.
I think so. I think you're right.
You think?
Yeah.
What makes you say that?
Well, I know we've spoken about that before, but I think that it's very clear that when I eat more protein, I am less hungry. When my meals are spaced out, and
Mm-hmm.
I eat a high protein breakfast, somewhere around 8 or not like 8:30, 9 o'clock, somewhere in that ballpark.
Mm-hmm.
When it's high in protein, I don't get hungry around 11. That's when I typically snack, or
Mm-hmm.
like 11 to 11:30. Like that's when I'm having. I go out and get a bar, or I go out and grab a bag of pretzels or
Mm-hmm.
something like that, just because I'm so hungry. Um, I think if when I've noticed when that is a full breakfast, I don't need to eat until 12:30, 1 o'clock.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Well, that's an important observation you're making and really empowering, right? Because you have the tools and the knowledge inside you already to make that change because you already know the solution. And I'm just helping guide you in that direction with action steps and tools, right?
Yeah.
But you already have that knowledge. So, one thing that we can do when you say a high protein breakfast, what I would ideally like to see for you is 30 grams of protein or more with breakfast and really with every meal. It seems like dinner, you're already doing that.
Yeah.
So I'll give you some ideas for high protein breakfast, and we'll kind of get into how we can create that at lunchtime too, even when you're eating out at work, so that you can avoid that late afternoon snack too.
Yeah.
So high protein breakfast, we're going to do things like Greek yogurt, or I know you've been doing the plain skyr, same thing.
Yeah.
That's going to be great because it has a ton of protein, and it also has dietary fat. And then you also are going to get some probiotics in there.
Okay.
And then I know you like to add fruit or berries, and that's perfect. Maybe some nuts and seeds for some more antioxidants and healthy fat.
Fats, yeah.
And that is something that if you add enough toppings and you kind of mix in the different textures and flavors, that is going to feel very satiating to you as it has in the past.
Mm-hmm.
Another thing that we prepped tonight for breakfast that could be good for you is egg cups.
Yeah.
So like making frittatas in those little cups, and those are easy enough to bring. Eggs are not super high in protein, so I would recommend adding a side of like, I know you like deli turkey, or doing that with like a little bit of avocado, or some breakfast sausages on the side.
Does that fat make you feel more full?
More satiated, exactly.
Yeah.
Yep. Because fat has more than double the amount of calories per gram than carbohydrates and protein, so it really makes you feel satiated. Mm-hmm. And avocado has fiber too, so that will be helpful for that.
Great.
And then in terms of lunches, to avoid that late afternoon snack.
Yeah, because that's where I run into trouble. Is I feel like around 3 o'clock is usually it. Like I usually eat lunch somewhere between 11:30 and 12:30, like somewhere in that window.
Mm-hmm.
When I get to 3 o'clock, I'm like, oh, I'm totally starving right now.
And from what you put in your intake, you're reaching for those carbohydrate-rich snacks, like the pop chips and bars and things like that.
Yeah.
So what's probably happening there is you're not having enough protein at lunch. And so what happens is you're never really fully satiated. Mm-hmm. And so your blood sugar dips quicker than it probably would if you had a filling enough lunch. Mm-hmm. So once you get to that bottom, your blood sugar dips, your body sends a signal like, oh, I need quick energy now because I'm at my lowest point.
Yeah.
And what's a way to get that? Carbohydrates.
Yeah.
But then what happens is that's going to send your blood sugar up really quickly without protein in that snack. Mm-hmm. And then you'll be right at the bottom of that dip again.
Yeah. So
later
make
in the
you
evening.
Hungrier. Yeah.
It'll make you hungry again. Exactly.
Yeah.
So for lunches, I just want to check how we're doing on time too. A few more minutes. For lunches, so where do you usually go for lunch? I know you said Sweetgreen is an option. What are some other things that you might get for lunch?
Yeah, I've been doing Sweetgreen often, which I will say I do get usually double protein in the salad.
Mm-hmm.
And another, I'll do Chipotle pretty often, or like a, Dig In, which is pretty healthy. The bowl I get is like greens, rice, protein, and like usually a sweet potato or broccoli or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And then other times I will do like a wrap here and there. So I'll do like a steak tip Caesar wrap is kind of one of my go-tos.
Mm-hmm.
But other than that, it's usually something like that. It's usually like a salad or a bowl or a wrap. And never really like a sub or something like that.
Right.
Like it's usually not that. I almost never order that. So those are kind of like the 3, I would say, main buckets I get, like a salad, a bowl. Or a wrap.
Yeah, and it sounds like you're intentionally opting for protein in those. It just might not be sufficient. And I think the reason for that is because as we measured during the nutritional exam, your basal metabolic rate, or the amount of calories that you're burning just at complete rest, is over 2,100. Yeah. So add in a workout, you do a lot of walking throughout the day, you're probably needing, probably close to 3,000 calories a day at maintenance. And we can measure that next time and I can give you a more exact number. But and when we're talking about you wanting to improve your weight and body composition, and lower your body fat, which might require also increasing muscle, that is going to require more dietary protein in order to sustain that muscle growth.
Yeah.
So it sounds like you're looking for protein, which is fantastic.
Yeah.
In terms of making it more satiating, so opting for double chicken or meat like you do at Sweetgreen, I would be curious to know how many ounces a serving of meat actually is there. And I can look into that for our next conversation.
Yeah, it seems like in Sweetgreen specifically, it's like, not enough.
Not as much as you might have at home for a serving of meat.
Not enough, yeah.
Even with the double.
Yeah, no.
Okay.
Yeah, so I think maybe that's somewhere where I could, get better at, having more protein, whereas I could maybe bring like a chicken breast from home or something like that.
Sure.
Yeah.
That's a great idea. We can definitely do that. And another tip too, when you're ordering bowls, is adding in some complex carbohydrates, meaning carbohydrates with fiber. So you said that when you go to dig in for lunch, you'll do things like sweet potato, broccoli. That is going to really help with, with staying satiated. Avocado as well.
Yeah.
So I think if you can build your meals around protein, if we're talking about size, at least what fits in the palm of your hand, but you're going to need more than that given your goals and your
and just my size, I think too. I'm just
your activity level
guy. Yeah.
Sure. Yeah. And then also complex carbohydrates, so things like sweet potato, broccoli, leafy greens, and like bell peppers, onions, cucumbers. Those are super healthy, and you should continue to have those.
Yeah.
Those are not complex carbohydrates. They're not going to give you. They do have fiber, but they're not going to give you that feeling of fullness of satiety.
Yeah. Yeah.
So looking for more rich, like root vegetables, like carrots and things like that. Adding in, if you can opt for like nuts and seeds on your Sweetgreen bowl, having, like I said, avocado or like olive oil for the dressing, things like that will make it more satiating for you.
So with the nuts and seeds, I know those are high in fat. If my goal is like trying to lose a few pounds, should I be worried about that? Is I adding in those things to make feel more full, or is that something that I can really be meticulous about in how much I eat, things like that?
That's a really good question. I think there's a lot of information about fats that, like, fat makes you fat. That's a saying that you hear a lot. If you're choosing primarily omega-3 rich fats, like think like walnuts, almonds, pumpkin seeds, like pistachios, cashews, things like that.
Yeah.
Those are going to give you the benefit of satiety to the point where you're not going to overeat them to the point where it would cause a caloric issue for you.
Because when I was a college football player, and my coach one time, I was undersized, and he told me to always eat a cup of nuts, before bed, and that always made me think, those type of foods make you big and make you fat. So just I'm kind of hyper aware of those in my diet, but it's good to know that in certain portions that's good for you.
It is really good for you. And that's so interesting that you have that experience. And thank you for sharing that, because we all have so many different biases and like schema about like what influences how we look at food later in life. And so it's really great that you're able to reflect on that. And now that that's not necessarily the case, that they're not, we're not assigning a bad label to them, that, you can kind of maybe shift how you feel about them.
Great.
So just to kind of summarize here, we've talked about a lot, and there are a lot of different things we can work on. But like I said, my approach is low and slow. So in this first session, we really talked about increasing your dietary protein, because that's hopefully going to make you feel more satiated and will in turn address the two goals that you mentioned, which is, the first one, kind of the snacking. And we didn't get to talk much about that goal of eating out less, but we did talk about some recipes that you can incorporate and make at home and perhaps bring to work with my help. And we can even recreate some of the bowls that you like to get at Sweetgreen. Those are relatively inexpensive to make at home as well.
Totally. Yeah.
So that is something we can dive into a little bit more next time.
Great.
But it sounds like you have a fantastic mindset for the work that we're going to do together. My suggestion is we meet every week for the first 6 weeks, just to make sure that we keep you on track. And we keep close sight of the goals that you set.
Yeah.
And then we can look at biweekly visits after that.
Great. That
So
sounds great.
do you have any questions for me before we wrap up?
No, I think we covered everything.
Okay, fantastic. So I will see you. Well, let's schedule it now.
Okay.
So are you available next weekend, Saturday or Sunday?
Yes, I am.
Which would you prefer?
Sunday afternoon.
Morning or evening?
The afternoon, I think, would be great.
Okay, I have, I think, a 3:00 and a 6:00.
6:00.
Okay, perfect. I will put you in for Sunday at 6:00 and I'll see you then.
Great. See you
Okay.
then. Thank you.
My pleasure.